Hello, welcome back to Night Shift. I wonder how many people stick around for EU and then also all of NA. I wonder what percentage of viewers do that, because you guys are the goats if you do it. But now, as you can see, as we switch regions, we switch casters, I'm here with Mitch and Jake. How you guys doing?
Guys, I'm on a streak. This is my 4th show in a row. That is actually crazy.
This is actually Mitch's body double. This is his assassination body double. He's coming in.
I just use machine learning. Basically, had them scan all my tripe for the last 15 years of casting and just spit out random lines to keep people happy,
Sick. How do I do that? Oh, that's pretty sick. Nice. Okay. Well, Mitch, when is that going to end though? When is there a combo breaker coming up or?
I mean, I'm going to do 5 in a row, I think, unless I get fired today.
Okay.
And then, a little bit spotty. I'm not going to lie to you, but I mean, hopefully over the next year or so is more consistent. That's my hope. I love being here. Obviously, you guys, when I get into a groove with the Night Shift, man, nothing beats it, honestly. And we've had fan-fudging-tastic games last week. Also, Europe today was great. So, and also we've had a little while since a patch, really. It's back on the 11th. So we've had some time to really settle into this kind of metagame, this kind of balance patch here. And it's been fun to just sort of dig in and sort of start to digest some of the new comps and even some of the random ones we're seeing pop up if you saw Buff and Joy's comp in EU. So it's fun. The game's still evolving, even though we haven't had a patch for, God forbid, a couple of weeks. So I'm loving it.
I got to say, Jake, I got to ask you, how does it feel to get to cast with Mitch? Because I feel like we're all fighting over Mitch when he comes back. We're like...
It's always a pleasure. I mean, Mitch and I have casted in Overwatch together and such, so we get to work together now and again. But always a pleasure having you on the show, Mitch. Always great to have you here in Deadlock. And as you're saying, I mean, the games have been incredible. We've been pretty blessed, I think, with the competitiveness and even the innovation. I mean, we saw Drifter and Dynamo just succeed. When I saw that draft, I was like, surely they've gone too far. Drifter never works. Dynamo, it's really out of the meta, but Buff and Jerks, they're just a team that can kind of make anything work. NA, I think, has been closer than that. I don't think any team has been able to kind of get that kind of ahead of the competition.
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket and see what we've got going on here for North America. So Melee Crews against Bird with Clock. You don't often see Melee Crews in the Challenger match, but today we will see that because FPS Lounge may be stabilizing a little bit after the recent merger of rosters. And perhaps they could be the new super team in NA. We'll have to see how that one turns out. But first, indeed, guys, Bird with Clock and Melee Crews will be the first showing for a best of 1. Any feelings on this? Where are the emotions?
It is, I mean, I'm curious. Curiosity is the sort of overwhelming emotion here because obviously Melee Creeps have made changes, right? We have sort of a player that, as ZP was talking about before the break, has actually come up through their quote-unquote academy program. This is homegrown talent. So Vinyl is going to be joining here Melee Creeps for this week. And we poked around a little bit, tried to understand what the background is, maybe what the pool is like. And we got completely different answers from Josiah and John as to their hero pool. But expecting to see Doorman-esque type heroes. Apparently that's what Vinal's been working on here. So I'm very interested to see how that turns out. And I don't know how that affects Sire's role. Whether Sire's going to be more support focused again or still going to be trying to play pick because obviously Holiday right now is bonkers.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I look at this team and I think, this is really the standard bearer. So Vinyl, it's going to be, it's a tough team to kind of come into and join. But also in some ways it's easy because this is such a strong team with such good systems. You can kind of come in and you have some room with which to work as a player to kind of show off your individualism in this comp. But of course it'll be under tough circumstances with them coming in the challenger match. You still got to consider them the heavy favorite over BWC, but nonetheless, anything can happen here in a BL1. You don't want to take it for granted, especially as a new player coming into this team.
Is it Vinyl or is it denial? If you turn your head all the way to the right, that's kind of like a D. Sometimes people get funny with it.
Me and everyone in chat, I think all just cocked our head 90 degrees to the right.
I mean, it's that or venereal. So I will go with Vinyl for their own sake. Yeah.
Okay, you said it, not me. All right, let's go to the next roster. Okay, we've got Bird with Clock. I think, this team is really dangerous. I feel like obviously they don't yet have Melee Creep status. I mean, that's kind of hard to achieve, but this is a roster that kind of feels like it could pop any week and kind of shock everybody with their level. Are you guys getting the same read as I am?
Yeah, I mean, generally, this team was really solid last week in that challenger game against FPS Lounge. And one thing that stood out to us is that Matt actually picked up the Great Talon role, which, we hadn't seen from them previous. Matt was, a little bit more support oriented and actually farmed, was a good plus 40, by 25 minutes into the game, and was pretty terrifying on that Great Talon. FPS Lounge, though, they were able to make use of Calico and they got Holiday in that draft and looked pretty good. Was also Yamato there. But this team is really solid. Still expecting them to, be impactful. But yeah, they're going up against the big dogs off the rip. So it's a lot to ask from these guys.
I mean, FPS Lounge, our current champs, they had to make a comeback against this team, right, in the BO1. And so we look at last week, you think, okay, FPS Lounge are the champs. They did really well, but it could have all ended. It could have been killed in the cradle if they had, failed to topple BWC in the BO1. So this team, you can't take it easy on them. You got to push the advantage, especially for melee creeps who are, head in the clouds, thinking about going back to the challenger match, retaking the top slot. If you think you're going to get an easy one past BWC, I think you're in for a tough lesson.
All right, well, now it's time to get the fists up because we've got the Mo 1v1 coming in hot. I don't know, honestly, most of the times when we do these, it takes me about the duration of the whole fight to work out which person is on which side, so I don't know.
They put the names there now. Look, we've got a proper overlay, which is kind of lit. And they actually have their actual names here, which is kind of awesome. So I took a hit early. Wasn't able to find a parry timing there. So, Coach Scout starting to lay that Lord down, but that parry might end it, I think.
Yeah, big advantage. Okay, he's stretching the limits of the arena here. Nice escape, but that parry going down, surely it is a finish. Well done by Saya. He's kind of the GOAT of these Mo 1v1s. I mean, has a pretty sterling reputation, I think.
All right, well, I mean, I'm curious what you guys are going to expect here for the draft because, we start to see the two main bands, instead of being, the Pocket and the Doorman, it's kind of like the Holiday and the Billy. That's where they were at. But obviously Pocket and Doorman are still top tier. But what do you expect to see?
I mean, I think we'll probably see Grey Talon go relatively early in the rotation. I think they're just such a monster in lane. And as we know, if they can get going, they can sort of really be quite oppressive. And I think, keep an eye out for Venator. Still your premier M1 carry. A lot of teams are prioritizing that. John is someone who really wants to pick that up when possible. And Matt's Grey Talon's already been banned out.
Ooh, like this respect. GT ban, I think it kind of sets you up to pick Pocket. So BWC, I feel like they should ban the Pocket, but there's a lot of top prio heroes in the meta. You mentioned Billy and Holiday, I think being pretty relevant, but yeah, they will block the Pocket. Without GT Spirit damage, this hero can kind of get out of control and can kind of be a huge problem both in team fighting and lane pushing.
There we go. I wonder if we'll see Drifter. I wonder if that's going to be a
surely not. I still am skeptical as heck.
Only buff enjoyers have got the cojones to go for that. Yeah, get Vinyl their pick potentially here first. Melee creeps actually really changed their style over the last couple of weeks. Sort of prior to last week, they were aggressively banning silver and trying to basically ban out all the powerful tanks and then get all the quality ones of theirs. They were trying to get these Billy Abrams comps if they could, and they were getting rid of silver, trying to make sure they had priority there. But it kind of switched last week, I felt, and they started going for these more, Doorman-esque, maybe pick-oriented comps as well. They were really trying to get that Holiday, rolled in, and they were actually sacrificing the prio on getting John Venator, and instead he was, he played something last week that was super surprising. I don't know if it was particularly Lash. John played Lash last week because all the M1s were banned out. They couldn't get Venator, and I'm pretty sure he was either banned or Warden was banned. So that put him in an awkward spot. That's the one thing right now. It's interesting to see what these teams M1 carry prio has been. Obviously, their first pick is seeing Dorman or a premium tank get picked up, and Mirage has jumped up the pick order again after we thought he was kind of cooked.
Yeah, even number one pick sometimes, Jake, in Europe today.
Yeah, I mean, Mirage debuffs, I think, are incredibly powerful. That being said, this is a draft that's a little bit scary for Mirage at times, with somebody like Doorman, Holiday, both potentially looking to pull you out of the fight. And then Venator being one of the few carries who I think can kind of tolerate the Mirage debuffs and just out DPS him at close range. So Mirage gonna have to play for those long fights. And still, I think there's an unanswered question about who's going to be able to deal with the Venator in the game. Still, of course, only half the draft through, but definitely going to need some kind of tools to deal with those long, stalled out team fights where Venator holds the line, Doorman, Holiday are just putting out a lot of spirit spam. Already, I like what I see out of melee creeps.
Again, this is interesting that Silver is really not being heavily prioritized here, and with Abrams banned and Billy taken away, like your options for building like a really stalwart front line are becoming a little limited here, right? You can, try and pick up like a Shiv later on. Viscous here is like a second round ban is interesting, right? Even now, I feel like we're seeing some of this ban priority shift a little bit. The Calico's great right now. Obviously, she's always incredible at stacking anything that empowers her melee damage, because that's what the slash does. Gloom bombs now, they trigger as on stick and not on explode, which, does mean that she can get in and have a bit of a nastier damage spike. Ren was highly prioritized last week, and we're going to see it here. I'm pretty sure we saw average get a three kills, with nap time, and one of those was a nap time pillow follow up, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, no shock here to see that Shiv taken up here, as melee creeps are a little light on the really good tank options.
Shiv would have been missing today as well. I don't know. It's kind of Europe is kind of weird. I don't know if that's things will settle there, or what's going on, what's in the water over there, but. There's your silver. Shiv silver feels like kind of nice to get this late in the draft. Still both very good.
Yeah, I think that the silver feels great here, especially with Rem already picked, where you maybe wanted to go leaning a little bit more bullet damage heavy. And with Abrams out, it feels like silver's the only option to give you that in the front line. Protoclock, though, they respond with the Geist. This will be that second carry. Mirage feels like, well, really is the premier secondary carry who, does a lot of debuffs, pulls a lot of distraction, does real damage, but you kind of want that maybe number one mainstay damage dealer. And while Geist is very farm dependent, it can be that in the late game, and Yamato is going to be the choice to get them a little bit closer. This hero, very feast or famine. I think a lot rides on Bird with Clock's early game playing around the Yam.
And going back to the Mirage pick, obviously you've got two separate options, depending on what debuffs you're actually trying to ricochet. You can make use of Inhibitor, or you can obviously look to, reduce the spirit damage with Silencer, right? Both are good items, over a longer period of time. They get the Lash here, melee creeps, able to fold that in. So Venator and Lash means that we're not going to see John on that pick here. But again, it gives them some pretty solid team fighting potential, quite disruptive here. But Bird with Clock, we've seen Yamato lately look pretty terrifying. Obviously, being able to stave off that early damage with the Shadow Transformation look really scary in those fights is crucial. It's very brawly set up with Bird with Clock, but with Geist and Mirage, I do feel like these fights need to carry on a bit. They certainly need time to really reach critical mass in terms of those ricochet builds that want to apply those debuffs here, and obviously just tick up to big damage.
Yeah, Jake, I'm curious what you think about this. I agree with Mitch. The Holiday Lasso, the Death Slam, the Doorman, Baronet. There's a lot of very disruptive stuff that melee creeps can throw at Bird with Clock, and it doesn't seem like they have a Viscous or something, some supernatural counter. So how do you see them Bird with Clock dealing with that?
I think a lot just comes down to the old management for them, because they actually, in this comp, especially later into the game, they're going to have a lot of natural sources of unstoppable. So whether it's Yamato ult, obviously from the beginning, as soon as she gets it, to Billy's ult max, Rem ult's maxed, these giving unstoppable is going to let you outplay a lot of these catch tools from melee creep. So I do think that that's essentially going to be the linchpin of the game, is can you get those key defensive ults out of Bird with Clock without actually losing your life? If you dive deep, force the arm ult, and then she turns and kills you all, right, you're not going to be feeling too good about that. So I kind of like what I see from Bird with Clock. I feel like it's up to melee creeps to make those picks happen. And if they can't quite get those connections, I think in the end, I feel like Bird with Clock should have a stronger team fight. That being said, the key question against a lot of these teams is, how does it come out of the lanes? Can you actually get into a competitive game of Deadlock, or are you just stifled from the beginning with a team's overwhelming pressure?
Where does it fall for you, Mitch, in terms of these drafts?
Yeah, I think what we see in Deadlock, especially as the game gets a little bit later, as it could be hard to handle a lot of this hard CC, get burst down pretty quickly. So I think Jake makes a great point. This Bird with Clock comp really is very brawly as far as I'm concerned. Melee groups are going to want to punish some positioning errors. I think they have some potential to fight around the urn. I think Death Slam is obviously a huge component of that, being able to get the Shiv in there. But Mirage also, now with the double Dust Devil look, really quite disruptive. We've seen the builds for Mirage change. And sometimes in a Geist Mirage setup, it's the Geist that gets funneled more of those souls to be outputting that gun damage. And you'll notice that Bird with Clock don't have a traditional M1 carry. right? Like they haven't opted to go for a Warden here where you justifiably could do so. He's also someone that's really hard to stop. It gets tankier, life steal off last stand, but they really value Geist's ability to turn a fight around with Soul Exchange, Yamato's Shadow Transformation, Kanako's Return to Shadows, and Billy, of course, with his spike in resistances when he's using Chain Gang, not to mention, like, you know, Jake mentioned, the natural unstoppable that a lot of these guys get. So this team are hard to really wipe off the map. And so finding them isolated is probably going to be a more gainful option for melee creeps than to try and run headlong at them. They're very stout. They've got great sustained damage output and the ability, obviously, to weather the storm of a lot of this initial disruption you're going to see.
Yeah, Jake, how are you feeling with the win cons? Do you feel like all the win conditions are kind of being defined, or did we miss anything?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot is going to come down to team fights, as it always does. But I will say I do like the concept of like the rejuve or the earn fights for Bird of the Clock. If they can come in with the ultimates, like it's going to be really difficult to deal with Billy plus Yam, just aggro frontlining anybody who comes in. For melee creeps, it's like who's going to be the one who stays in the zone, especially in an earn fight. I guess Silver, right? Which could look good for her, but Silver can, I feel like, kind of get scary against somebody like Mirage, just hiding you around, stacking up. And, you know, I maybe if Shiv has a huge game, this is a very different type of game. Like if Shiv is just so far ahead that he's dominating the enemy front line, then I don't think melee creeps really are going to have much trouble at all. However, I think if it, you know, is a little bit more questionable, Shiv's, you know, kind of playing a little bit more safely for his life, Billy and Yam could just as easily take that tide. So, you know, as always, I think whoever can have that, you know, better stats, better aggression in the front line, put your opponent on the back foot is going to be feeling good.
All right, gents. Well, melee creeps against Bird with Clock here for the money. Well, for a chance at the money match. We'll have to see who's going to take it. But on the cast, I know who's going to take it. It's going to be Uber and Jake. Have fun, gents.
Thank you, Dan. I don't blame you for thinking this is a money match, seeing melee creeps obviously here, but no. The tide's shifting a little bit in North America, and the ambitious project FPS Lounge has come to fruition, at least for now. But melee creeps are not a team to stay down for long, and Bird with Clock have looked scary, forcing a comeback in last week's Challenger game, and unfortunately getting knocked out there. But NA's looking good. These top three teams are very competitive. Looking forward to jumping in. It was speculated in chat a little bit, and yes, it will be Fishcake on the Silver, who just needs to make sure the right wire is plugged into the right port before we get started.
Crucial element here with a little bit of early pause lock. Lanes, I think, are going to always be crucial, especially for a team like Bird with Clock, who, you know, they come into this as the underdogs. Maybe they're not going to see themselves that way, but I think it's probably fair to say for the community, most people look at melee groups like this team should be contending always for the title. Bird with Clock, they've been kind of outside that circle of trust, if you will, for their expectations to do really well in these competitive matches. And with Vinyl now coming into the team, this could be an opportunity for Bird with Clock. It could also be a chance for Vinyl to show off and put on a really explosive performance here. Dorban feels like one of those heroes with that incredible variance in what you provide for the team.
Obviously, it's also being talked about in chat. Our intel on Vinyl is a little limited, but it wasn't assisted by John and Sire giving us two very different accounts of what their hero pool is. So the consensus, though, is that very capable on a large number of different heroes. It was just Dorman that was specifically mentioned by John. So no shock to see that being picked up here. But like, I look across melee creeps, everyone is in a very comfortable role. Ido, of course, roaming, going to be playing a lot of that pressure. Fistcake, we've been seeing, like I said, on a lot of Silver lately. Sai's back on pick. John's on Venator. And Do, of course, is going to tear it up on shift. So very good looks for them. Bird with Clock, of course, my eyes are on Matt here, on the Yamato. Saw great talent last week from him. Looked excellent. Got banned out pretty much straight away. Melee creeps has sort of zeroed in on that as being something they don't want to deal with. And I'm still wanting to track just what Calico can do now. She's certainly received quality of life changes, just some numbers buffs, especially when it comes to Return to Shadows. And we've got two teams that are pretty effective at roaming the map. It's just Bird with Clock's ability to generate a pick outside of, I guess, chain ganging someone or, you know, keeping them juggled constantly with Dust Devils or, God forbid, hitting with nap time is a little more limited. They will want the game to come to them in many cases, and they'll be very well equipped to stand and hold their ground.
And I think you set this up well. It's a lot of pressure, I think, on players like Ido, Saya, Vinyl to kind of go out and kind of bait those engagements. You know, Bird with Clock, in a way, they have like one incredibly powerful burst in the team fight with the Billy ult and the Yamato ult. And beyond that, I think things can be a little scary. So when they do commit, they need to get kills. They need to profit. Players like Shiv and Shiv rather, and Silver, I think are going to be kind of the key ones tested. We're going to step up, try to get those ults out, try to survive the engagement, and whether they can or not is going to be really significant in terms of the outcome of these fights, of these this match, really.
And I guess, in the background of all of this, if you were here last week, you would have seen a pretty banger grand final game between Melee Creeps and FPS Lounge. It went all the way, and it ended up being a reverse sweep in that best of 3 by FPS Lounge, who, a couple of things that stood out to me about them is that, their preferences kind of line up with Melee Creeps in terms of what they're contesting through that draft, right? So, if Melee Creeps, big if, get through this game, they're going to be fighting for Doorman, for Venator, picks like that. They're going to be, having to make some sacrifices in theory through that draft phase in order to sort of get them. We are waiting on confirmation here from Fishcake in terms of what the issue is. Obviously, a bit of banter going on in the game, so we shouldn't be too far away from getting in here. But for now, chat, we're hanging out. We are reading your comments every now and then. So happy to have a chat and hang out with you guys here while we wait for this game to get underway. But either way, I think Burber Clock also might be primed to start to make a run because we've seen them only improve. I think that's safe to say. This top 3 obviously is pretty insular right now in North America. We are, of course, running what are we calling it? Like a pre-challenger match, I guess, to decide who actually goes head to head in this 1 versus 1. A lot of
qualifier.
Yeah, damn qualifier. So succinctly put. And obviously, work in progress there is a team that we're seeing put in a ton of work and hope to see them start to make their way into night shift proper.
It's the nature of the game, though, Mitch. There's no easy wins, especially in a game as early as Deadlock, right? It's hard to really, get too far ahead of the pack. But by the same token, it can be hard to break in when you're dealing with teams as established as you look at even Bird with Clock as a roster, right? A lot of these players, this core has been together now for a couple months, right? They've been really building that momentum. Look at Melee Creeps for much of the same. And for teams on the outside trying to break into those top slots, it's not easy. You got to work quite hard to be able to kind of surmount that level of experience, team coordination, and just to believe we actually can win. We can, play with that confidence. Melee Creeps seems like Fishcake is back in the game, trying to get back into the Discord. It could be a challenge.
Restart their PC, but maybe the more important part than unmuting here in lobby is being able to jump in Discord and get ready to go. Burber Clock, of course, only in game chat. Have to respect that. We also can, I can squint and start to see some of these lane assignments as they emerge. No surprise, I think, see the Venator and the Holiday over towards mid. We are going to be underway here, folks. We get the R's in the chat, and this is our challenger game between Melee Creeps, who conspicuously have fallen out of that final best of 3 and have to fight their way back up versus Burber Clock, who is ready to take on all challenges as they themselves are chomping at the bit for a chance of recognition.
This match, a lot of stakes on it here. Calico, always a hero that I look forward to have a chance at an explosive lane, right? Nothing's guaranteed, and I think especially in this BL1 and NA in particular, I think teams tend to bring a lot of respect to the laning phase. We haven't seen very many explosive advantages developing too early. And for Burber Clock, I don't know that they feel any pressure too. I think they may feel like, hey, we get deep enough into the game, things could go well. One player though, and this is the nature of the hero that I'm always going to be looking to in the early game, is Matt. Not in this instant, of course, but the first few minutes of the game, finding those opportunities to roam on Yamato, actually show up to side waves, get some kills, or maybe bring players in to assist you in the mid, really, I think, sets the tone for the match, whether you're going to be able to really threaten kills with those power slashing.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's just that once you skill into a flying strike, just connect one of those and it's going to be on for young and old. Pitch up boosty here for Arctic. This is going to be Yamato and Mirage in mid here against the Venator and Holiday combo, which is definitely pretty what you tend to often see in this kind of setup here. It gets a bit frothy, of course, as Matt has been putting down a pretty persistent poke, especially in the direction of Sire. Looking across the lanes here, you can see that Arctic's also taken a bit of a beating damage-wise in this lane. Over towards this left side of the map here, we've got Ido on the lash. Certainly someone who can display just his mastery of movement in this game. Burber Clock are really shoving this.
Sounds like a problematic lane. Oh, a slightly awkward little ground strike there, and it seems like, well, the lion's share of the small creeps do go to Bird with Clock. I will say this is a scary lane for Shiv and Lash. They don't have the best creep D push, and Rem can give you huge problems with those little helpers on the creeps.
Yeah, it always feels like you're fighting a losing battle just in terms of that lane pressure. Okay, pause here from Ido now. Not a lot to report on the right lane at the moment. It's been pretty back and forth stuff. Obviously, strive with a lot of that inherent survivability. Tanner threatening to boycott our challenger game. It's like, dude, we've lost him, so I need to get the young goat back in game.
And Dude's kind of struggling in this lane. I feel like this is almost expected. I don't know what you're supposed to do on Shiv here. With Lash kind of just chilling, looking for the ground strikes. Trading with Rem and Billy is pretty brutal, especially off the DC. It's a rough spot. Maybe it might be some sportsmanship. Tanner might actually let Do out of this. Do is in serious trouble if Tanner doesn't give him the escape here. I mean, maybe, yeah, he's okay. A little respect between competitors here. Nice from Tanner. Yep. Not that the kill in the first minute makes all the world of difference, but it's a base trip for Do. That hurts pretty bad this early in the game.
Yeah, don't really want to get chunked down, and this is obviously an opportunity. This does mean that like your ultimate can come online a little bit later. There's a flying strike we mentioned about connecting. Parry up there for Saya, but it's looking a little bit dicey, and a right click comes in for the Yamato, but it's Arctic that gets the job done. Pretty hard, I think, at low health to evade this scrutiny of this Mirage. Bit of aggression there from John. Thought there might have been a chance to take a trade here, but Arctic wisely fades back.
Oh, that grenade just came bouncing past him, barely surviving on this Mirage. And another hero loves some momentum in the game, loves a hot start. Bird with Clock, I think all signs go for them here in the laning phase. Obviously, still too early to call this advantage more than a minor inconvenience, I guess, but the pressure continues to mount here, especially in the side lane.
Yeah, you can see that, Do, in order to find the appropriate DPS, so his Guardian doesn't get pushed in, actually has to, come forward, slice and dice at these minions, just that extra healing and resists, from the little helper on the minions is huge pain in the ass. And basically, if you're not there to try and equalize it by pumping out more damage, then the wave gets away from you. Slice and dice here through for Do, back to the safety of his own tower, but has already taken over 350 damage from that Billy. And kind of like you said, this definitely feels like the pain point for melee creeps. It's very hard to trade effectively into this lane. Obviously, a lot of crowd control at the disposal of the Billy. Those bash downs are pretty hard to avoid if Rising Ram is on target.
Yeah, I think you're looking to just lose this lane well on Shiv and try to get to the point where the ultimates come up. But even then, that won't be the end of their troubles, right? I think Billy and Rem are going to be very much aggressively looking for dives at that point in the game. Trades here in the opposite side lane. Also going well with Bird with Clock, but this lane, I think, a much more stable one. Geist, very sustainable and hard to evict from the lane, but usually not much of a bully.
Obviously, the heal Bane pretty early into the inventory for Do. Try and find a way to counteract some of that inherent healing that Rem is just going to be doling out en masse. Hey, the left side Guardian is, oh man, definitely being chunked down. And we're going to see what the definition of winning well, at least for melee creeps, is going to, losing well rather, is going to look like in that particular lane. It's getting frothy though as well. Stride being pressured now. Fishcake though, face full of damage, and they're going to try and pursue this now as well. Nice baggage card though, that's going to send Stride off course. Good intervention there. But we saw Do actually fall earlier on. Fishcake though is able to extricate himself, if only just.
Big double buffs though go to melee creeps. Be a little consolation prize for them, although Saya takes so much pressure in mid. This life buff, it really is just mitigating that. And elsewhere, problems abound. Fishcake on 1 HP. Just take a base trip here. This is it's feeling the pressure. I mean, these kind of leads though, they don't matter too much. I think for a team like melee creeps, it's not that significant. Here comes the chain gang. It does pull Lash in. Blasted is popped. Needs a parry here maybe to escape this. He's holding those quick melees so conservatively. And the triple dagger is going to be enough to kill Billy. Oh, no way. Billy lives on 7 HP. That is unreal.
I mean, that's Gibbs also. Just a timely nap time there to stave Do off. You can chase this down, surely. Can we get to safety? We've got to try and kite. Gibbs is down, and Tanner also falls. And that is Bird with Clock lingering a little too close to the sun at sub 100 HP, respectively.
Oh, big lasso. Very long range there, and it catches Arctic.
The reload timing.
Not a free kill just yet, though. Venator showing up should be able to get that finish, and yes, he does. John profiting. Nice connection from Saya on the lasso, and any kind of advantage in the early game has just evaporated off the back of a couple plays. That double kill from Do with the heal bane, he's back up to max HP and has basically entirely recovered the lane in one play.
Yeah, I mean, now you're going to get another wave shoved in underwards that Guardian. Of course, it had to be a zipline boost to get their presence back up in that lane. But helpful. Souls funneled rather in John's direction. Notice he already starts to get some of those key items into his inventory. Weakening headshot already hits the bag for him. There's a bit of action here on this left-hand side of the map. Tanner is down. Ida's able to finish the job. Nice little ground strike. And now, if you're Gibbs, you're skirting around the edge of this situation, just trying to maintain some of their Guardian health.
That's fantastic. And Do got out of that as well. They were chasing him so hard, so desperate for the kill, but in Shiv fashion, he slips away. This is a speculative dive on Saya. You don't really want to take it under the tower here, especially without a power slash, but still the hopeful lane, I think, for Burbaclock is here in mid, but a counter kill on Mirage with the lasso really gave John a nice little buffer of advantage here.
Yeah, and you can see that also their Guardian suffered as a result of it. They fall behind there. Trap triggered there by Arctic. Probably doesn't want to have to reckon with that at a later stage. A lot of pressure here. Nice little gut shot. Dust Devils, though, more for an escape for Arctic as he has to trend backwards here. Saya very much in the mix, but needs to watch out. Those power slashes are going to chunk that health down, but he fancies a bit of fighting. Crack shot there, connects 300 plus damage thrown down by the Holiday. And at some point, you've got to call it quits if you're Arctic.
Yeah, set the enemies very low, though. Yamato with ultimate could very well look for these tower dives. Melee creeps know it. Billy, now it's his turn to be under pressure. Like this Lash build has started to pay off. He has the Spirit Spike online. The damage is massive here.
Okay, big ground strike on towards Tanner. The tag along had expired, so the healing not available, and that window is certainly exploded there by melee creeps. And again, honorable mention to the heal bane picked up by Do earlier on. On the ground strike here, this is tough. This is dangerous now for Gibbs to try and keep this Guardian healthy. And Do can just rinse and repeat this. Drop down with his empowered ground strikes just from having such high altitude to the
nice tag along.
Trying to hide inside his minions, bro. That ain't gonna work forever.
Oh, really well played, actually, by Gibbs. He somehow survived that. The tower is going to go down. See what the response is going to be. This is a massive one for melee creeps to find this early, because now Lash is unleashed. He can start to roam. Do's on a 3-kill streak, leading the lobby, and Souls has a comfortable safe lane to just farm up, especially with these 8-minute Sinners that are so easy for a character like Shiv in particular to farm.
Losing well, melee creeps did a terrible job of that on the left-hand side of the map. Yeah, able to sort of win that lane out. Now, obviously, a timely moment here to go collect some of these camps. Guardian going down, of course, on his right-hand side of the map. Vinyl just has to really sort of accept this. Looks like a bit further down the lane was Silver, but Burbaclock very quickly able to pull themselves out of there, not expose them to any form of reprisal.
9 minutes, a little bit of a lull in the game. There's a lot of Sinners to be cleared. I think both teams maybe want to relax and just deal with some of those jungle. But at the same time, the cost is being exacted here. Exacted, rather, the right lane. Guardian will be cleared, and yeah, stepping through that door feels a little risky up against Doorman. They don't want to chance it, but they will be able to hold on to their tower with that counter pressure.
Yeah, that's pretty important. And obviously, the further up that melee creeps on the right side are going to push them more, they can expose themselves to, like, is Yamato even rotating in towards that lane? So, got to be a little bit careful. Their safe zone is pushed back a lot further. Here in mid, Billy and Yamato have actually turned up here for Burbaclock. And so far, not really much to speak of in terms of that action. A bit of a shove on the left-hand side there as John wants to get that wave rolling. 8.9k soul. So head and shoulders above the rest in terms of that early farm. That's exactly why he's sitting in that lane solo at the moment. Fight for buffs, though, is certainly on. And suffice to say, Burbaclock have they've expressed themselves here very much on that top side. Now going to have to fight for it. Ido looks like he was able to come away with the buff there. Tanner also fell, but Flaws. Nice little siphon there. Able to at least make it a 1-for-1.
The trades can get expensive here, though. Yamato coming back into this one with everything available. Silver ult does come out. Crucial little battle here. Silver looks to be getting overwhelmed, though. So many players fully surrounding Fishcake, and yeah, Sustain just can't come into that one. He's here, 10k souls, thinking about getting into a fight, but seems like he may think better of it. Yam could be a tough chase down. Depends how many daggers Do is holding on to, and Do DCs again. That is really rough.
Sorry, here having a brief conversation with this mid Guardian. I think even with Tanner on the way, there is no chance of intervening there. We've got a chance. We can have a look at the builds, start to see how some of these are shaping up early. Another Do DC has us taking a pause. Do obviously saw him get that solo 1v2. Granted, his opponents were low, but very, very important to come and be able to to pick up that kill. He is motoring in terms of those souls. Got that suppressor, of course, in the inventory alongside the radiant generation. So already going to be pretty hard to try and drag down. Verilab's a chain gang straight in mid. Sire looks like he's going to be punished for taking that Guardian. Might be a worthwhile trade for him though now as we're equalized Guardians in mid. Ido's got to respect the bash down here though. And Tanner at about half health here has to watch out because all of a sudden Do has turned up and he is exerting every single one of those extra souls he has of a lead. He's up to 11k now.
Yeah, it's a tough death for Tanner. I mean, he really needs to get more towards the late game. I think Saya, you know, ideally you'd be able to escape from that without losing your life. But at one point with Billy, I think feels pretty good considering Billy wants to be ahead of game. He wants to be bullying. Mirage is getting legitimately ignored while the Predator just pushes the tower. But maybe he's gone a little bit too far. Should be a fourth stack here potentially. You know, isn't quite going to get that. But a couple heavies connecting here off the sleep. And Mirage is in real hot pursuit of this Venator, who actually may be getting away from this one. It's not a free kill.
Kako was bringing up the rear here. Her extra mobility might have allowed her to get the grips. And yeah, Strider's going to come in and snap up John. Matt, though, elsewhere down. That was in mid lane. Completely just stomped on by like 4 players by the looks of things. And Tanner might not fare much better either. Huge migration, rotation of players in towards mid here for Melee Creeps. Even though there's not necessarily a key objective to be fighting for based on where the lane was. But it looks like they want some early pressure there, at least getting the wave shoving towards that Walker, and they're death balling here over towards the left.
Yeah, Tanner is definitely getting punished in this game. We've seen what Billy can do with a little bit of a snowball. It's okay, Shiv and Ram have a little bit of a welcome party there. No one's gonna look to force this too much because, of course, with Urn spawning, that will be the key objective on the map for both teams. Advantage surely to Melee Creeps if they get first control here, and they will. Benile just waiting on it. No contest from Berwick Clock. You'd think they would want to fight this. Yamato ult is coming up. Billy is close, but not quite there. It's a little bit questionable.
And you'll notice here that, you know, in advance, John gets a nice little shove here on this right side. So gets that lane pushing. Is going to be requiring Floz there to attend to it. Look at what Strider's looking for here. There's an opportunity in towards mid. Is there a fight to be had here, though?
Silence.
Yes, Flying Strike caught on towards Saya. Great coordination here between the Yamato and the Calico, but this might turn against them here. Return of Shadows has to be used. Shadow Transformation. You're kidding me, guys. Shadow Transformation also actively, at a cursory glance at this screen, tells us that Berwick Clock are a little outnumbered here.
Yeah, I mean, that kill on Saya was so insanely close. And now what's really scary is that Saya is going to go heal up into the base and come right back into this fight. The big ultimates available for Melee Creeps, all collapsing on this position. To me, this looks kind of like a cleanup for Melee Creeps. It does not look good here for Berwick Clock.
Badu looking as terrifying as he is. No one really on the side of Berwick Clock able to contend with this right now. Yeah, the fact that Sire is able to slip away is pretty ridiculous. And these are two of the abilities we talked about earlier on, the Shadow Transformation and Return to Shadows, respectively. Very edgy nomenclature. But obviously, these abilities, in theory, should be staving off that sort of first wave of like hard CC or disruption that you're dealing with. But you got Fishcake who's in a great position and Do is well and truly ready to fight. So I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I wouldn't be favoring Berwick Clock here, who probably will try and make use of these next few moments to escape. So it's funny when we get pauses in these kind of like fast-paced games, teams actually have a chance to think about what their avenue is going to be as we get out of pause time. And look, yep, we're going to try and slip away. I don't think Stride's going to be so lucky, though.
Yeah, he's going to get run down. I think it's nice that Yam even is able to live out of that. Good movement from Stride to pull a lot of attention. Walker's just being attempted here, but it feels a little difficult with someone like Venator to defend, although the damage reduction from the Scarab is actually kind of mitigating this deep push from John.
Yeah, John has to be careful. I think he's now realizing that Rem's there as well. Dangerous.
Big shotgun.
That's dirty. Arctic got shot to pieces. And look, there's Sire. Oh, never really seems to be too far from John, in fairness. And that attempt here from Berwick Clock to at least sort of offset the fact that they were going to lose the urn falls flat on its face. I kind of get the idea, like shoving the other peripheral lane, the other side of the map here to try and force your opponents into, you know, an exchange of souls makes sense. But man, they get nothing out of that. And you see too many moments like that. And you know, a team like Melee Creeps is going to get too much of a lead off of it. They're so good at making sure that each of these like little value exchanges favors them. They get everything they could have asked for there. And so they got a 10k soul lead.
Full double steal is really big when you're able to get it right off the respawn too. A lot of souls, a lot of permanent buffs. And I mean, Do also just bought Torment Pulse, which is an item I really don't see bought so much anymore. I think it's just an expression of how far ahead he is in this game. He wants all in aggression. He wants to be able to dominate the enemy front line. And I mean, the stat check here for Yamato and Billy is not looking favorable. Matt, though, doing pretty well for himself at 13K. Maybe he can start to bring this one back. Somebody's got to shut down this Shiv, though, and it's not easy at this level of farm. He's built some of those key defensive tools. He's got the aggression on him as well. I mean, you have huge do problem in this game as Bird with Clock.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing for just staying alive and slicing and dicing through these fights as often as you can. I like that here. Death Slam now comes in for Tanner. This probably is just to get a bit of breathing room, but here's Dew turning up yet again. Dangerous now. A couple more of those knives, and it's going to be good night. Still, Tanner sees fit to try and fight for this. Already a K plus damage being put down, though, by Dew. And yeah, I think you're realizing at this point you are bleeding out. Sheer weight of silverware sticking out of your twitching corpse. And Bird with Clock are getting flattened here in the mid game. This is where melee creeps shine.
I couldn't agree more, and this game actually is dangerously like hanging in the balance right now. I mean, Bird with Clock have a couple more chances to get some reasonable team fights. Consideration of the mid boss, I think it's a little bit too early with how short the spawn timers are, but we've already reached the point where it feels like Bird with Clock really can't take these team fights anymore. They've got a comeback around coming in 3 minutes, and that's something you can work with, but it's a long time between here and there, and a lot of lanes to be pushed out, a lot of jungle to be cleared, and melee creeps battling for every last bit of it.
And Bird with Clock are distributed here. There's no one resource to be fighting around, so they don't really get to be a death ball. They are pretty desperately spread, trying to cover, like, you know, off lanes, keep their walkers alive and such, which, by the way, they've obviously lost one of those already. And so this comp for melee creeps that wants to sort of feast on isolated individuals is going to be great here. We saw with that pause time in mid, there's a player advantage. Melee creeps have 3 players there. They're ready to go. They are very dynamic, moving across this map, but always making sure they manufacture these pick opportunities. Saya's lasso is on cooldown right now. They might have run into a little bit of action here. Also, Rem and Calico can traverse the map in ways that no one else really on the cursed apple can. But I'd still be very, very careful about getting caught out of position. You can see that Tanner is very, very quick to dodge back.
Yeah, you feel the presence of melee creeps here in the mid lane. Bird with Clock, they really would love to bait a bad dive, but Billy ult is one of the best ways to punish a move like that. And still 40 seconds, of course, down. And Yamato forced into ult. He's 1 HP. Oh, a little bit maybe too deep for Saya, looking for that kill, but Doorman out is going to ensure that they're completely back off the play with no risk taken. Really well executed from melee creeps. They get the Yam ult. I mean, not finding the kill is unfortunate, but the Yam ult alone means in 18 minutes when that next turn spawns, it's not going to be feeling good for BW.
And obviously, that's a Veil Walker already picked up for Saya, so it's really uncomfortable, I think, to play into a situation like this where the lanes were in flux. Sometimes melee creeps are taking these forays into Bird with Clock's territory, and Saya is, well, undetectable until that lasso comes out. So they have to be extra careful about their positioning, and maybe just will miss out on opportunities for that free farm. Well, there it is. That's the lasso. Now you got to respect the soul exchange here, and the Mirage has turned up. Oh, nap time as well. Bird with Clock have the numbers here, and Iridomini never really goes off. Oh, a bit of a misstep there for the dynamic duo of John and Saya, and the rest of the melee creeps just aren't there in time to intervene.
Yeah, it's the first time we really felt the impact of Geist in this game. Flaws has just been farming up, but a beautiful moment to show himself just when the team really needed him. They get a great turnaround kill. Of course, you got to give a lot of that credit to Gibbs and Arctic with the instant reactions to save the Geist and turn that fight around.
And again, I don't think that Lady Geist is necessarily a premium target for finding an isolated player across the map. She can stay alive for an inordinate amount of time, especially with soul exchange sort of delaying what could have been inevitable there. Dangerous to go after her, especially. She's on her own. That does not mean that she is necessarily weak. She can certainly 1v2 in scenarios like that. But still taking stock of things. John is continuing to get stronger. And melee creeps here, they have a mid-game power spike represented in Dew being very well farmed. And then that will sort of cover them until John can really get involved in the game. Once you get to like 30 plus K souls. Here's an earn take, but mid-boss is, being considered.
The damage is a little low on mid-boss. It looks like a fake, but they're considering completing. I mean, they have the doorman door here. They can play for this. As John steps off, though, signals the intention to look for the kill. Big Billy chain, though. Hold on, Tanner could be getting a nice start to the fight here if Matt can connect, but it's a little awkward. He's a little bit too far away. And now it's actually Yamato who finds himself being chased down, and the mid-boss is still being completed here by melee creeps.
I will say, though, sharp on the left side lane. Floss is able to get a walker down. That is big. Dust Devil being thrown up here. It is very disruptive, but it's not going to yield an opportunity to get all the rejues. Arctic, though, does get away with one. Right now, hotel stay for them and a call bell to greet him as he pops on out. So, yes, that's going to be that reju credit burnt basically instantly. But Arctic at least able to get one for his troubles. There was an earn turn in from Bird with Clock, and they got that walker. So, in terms of the soul exchange, it actually favors them. Now that they've got to be mindful, of course, of just the impact of this rejuve. And obviously, Jake, it's going to give melee creeps the space to get these waves shoved back out. They can correct this awkward macro situation they're in, just with the threat they're generating, but it will potentially split them a little.
Yeah, it's definitely massive when you're even able to take one rejuve away. I think, you know, for the casual viewer, it can feel like it wasn't that significant, but really can be game-changing. Although this pull back onto Matt, even with the save from Gibbs, is just not going to be enough. Great catches there from the melee creeps gank, and that's where things can start to get rocky, right? You start losing these frontliners on top of the rejuves, and there's a consideration of looking for a walker push. Still, pushing the mid walker is one of the riskiest things you can do in Deadlock, so still melee creeps just looking for better opportunities, jungle camps, little small bits of resources they can pick up here and there.
But this is also why melee creeps are using this rejuve window to curate those two peripheral lanes, right? Make sure that Burbaclock actually have to call players back towards them so they can't be that death ball in mid to challenge what would be a risky walker attempt. Sire is definitely playing with fire where he's positioned at the moment. But still, there's so much room behind this. We're going to see centers being picked up. Obviously, we've got 2.5 minutes still of rejuve left. Melee creeps don't necessarily feel like they have to group up and play as 6. They can go in, you know, small, dare I use the word, goon squads of 2 to 3 people and play around any one of these pick abilities they've got at their disposal. Can't really say that more, can you? Like, it's just not his
I mean,
in the way
I'm not
it's
going to stop
used
you.
to be.
Big all-in commit from Holiday, but it actually just baits the Yabble and runs for it. Power Slash does connect, so Saya's going to be running for the hills, but once again, baits the Yabble and pulls back off the play. Melee Creep's still looking for more into this. There is a Lash with a movement buff and an ulti here. So with a big Death Slam, there's definitely a fight to be had. Ido considering the possibility, but not trying to overforce it too early. Matt, though, goes down so low and is now a target. Has to just run this unconventional path. Doesn't seem to be the way out of here. And with Vinyl rolling up to assist and a doorman will catch, they could go for more here, Mitch. It's a little bit suspect, but they have 2 regions to work with.
But again, there's multiple lanes of pressure that's coming down at this very moment. Hotel Stay exposes Tanner to the call bell damage in the follow-up, and John on the right-hand side gets that important pick-off on the Mirage. That global presence shut down. Looks like Arctic didn't have it available anyway. Over the top, Death Slam might be well worth it here for the lady. Guys, got to make sure to get in before that soul exchange. Here's a rejuve credit being burnt, though. Floz, once again, nice and healthy. Ido definitely on the wrong end of her ultimate, but there's other players to pressure this down, and Geist is going to struggle to extricate herself. Floz is down. There's yet another rejuve credit gone, though. Vinyl will fall, and now Walker is still defended, but Burbaclock are low on numbers. They've been bleeding off players to respawn timers, whereas melee creeps have been getting them back straight away.
Still, honestly, not too bad for Burbaclock. Like, they get all the regions out. They still hold this mid walker. I don't think the push is going to come in, so melee creeps are going to have to settle for a nice jungle clear. When Floss comes back on the map, Burbaclock will be able to flex their strength, but it has felt like, you know, pretty tenuous for Billy and Yamato. We talked about their ability to maybe get these big team fights where their ultimates are just too impactful, but it's really Saya, I think, who's been the difference maker. He's been able to get in, force that Yamato time and time again, and crucially escape with his life.
And how many times have we actually seen a full 6-on-6 fight in this map so far? Frankly, I don't think we have. I mean, look at the positioning of melee creeps here. They do not want to give Burbaclock that kind of conditions in order to fight. So again, looking for picks. It's so dangerous now. This Calico positioning from Stride is pretty audacious considering melee creeps' ability to isolate these individuals. Now, never mind. They're in the tunnels. It's all Gucci. But still, like, you want to be careful getting caught out there. This is obviously a very reasonable box run. And back to the rest of the team, we'll see Calico eventually run. We got a minute until learn. That'll be the next objective. And again, there are some macro concerns for Burbaclock. Here's Lasso catching on towards Matt. Again, it's going to be staved off, though. However, no Shadow Transformation force this time around.
I almost can't believe that missed. Looked on target to me, but Matt, maybe it's a little too cheeky with those staminas. Able to pull back, and still the midwalker holds. Gibbs also giving them some serious problems, but just his ability to control this high ground here means, you know, every time these jungle camps spawn, they're just gobbled up by melee creeps who keep control of the crucial areas of the map. Feels like they don't need to go for the commit on this midwalker. They're controlling all the relevant objectives around it.
Yep, and they're slowly, incrementally gaining that soul lead. Right, which is something that's really going to come to call when they get to cash in what they're carrying at the moment. Burbaclock don't have any freedom, and like, you're looking at the game state here. You might be forgiven for thinking melee creeps have got rejuve buffs right now, because that's how Burbaclock are playing. They are being very cagey. They don't want to overexpose themselves here, but they don't have the ability to farm their own creeps. Obviously, with, you know, like the way that like comeback souls work, melee creeps are denying Burbaclock that opportunity to sort of get that value. This is a 16k soul lead, which on paper might not seem like much, but when you look at Do and John specifically fed as they are, that is a terrifying prospect.
I see the enemy.
Mirage is pushing out a Sidewalker while this Urn contest comes in. It's a big heal onto Billy, but decides to go in deep on this. Lash ulti over the top, but this actually looks like a much better fight so far for Bird with Clock. Will it be enough with Mirage teleporting in? John Fishcake both incredibly low. Bird with Clock maybe pulling off the comeback here, Mitch.
Yeah, John being low is a dangerous factor. Dude, though, is still in this fight, and he absolutely wants to ramp up. Gibbs has been taken down already. Benile is keeping a respectful distance here away from the Yamato, and Matt is low enough in health after that stay at the Baroness that you need to be careful about taking these engagements. Nice flying strike connection, though, and Benile needs to, have his wits about him. But elsewhere, Do gets a second kill in this fight. He's just able to stay alive long enough, and Ido is just cycling between that high and low ground so comfortably over the course of the fight, getting off those big ground strikes, and now Arctic is in trouble. Holding onto the Urn here, not where you want to be. Dispel Magic has to be burned in order to try and get away. A Slice and Dice closes the gap. Do can't finish it, but the Urn had to be dropped.
Nice little find from Do to grab that Urn on the exit. John's going to keep things pressured in the mid, and this mid walker, long time the bastion for Bird with Clock, brought these in.
What?
Matt?
Chuck Pelvis with the $1,000 tip?
What the
Holy
heck?
bro. That is $1,000 added to the prize pool for shift number 44. Thank you, Chuck Pelvis, for your support of our aspiring pro players here in Deadlock and of the show. Thank you.
Insane support. Okay, I don't think I ever expected to see a donation like that bubble on the feed. Well, good news for the players. Now a lot more to play for, especially for melee groups considering this lead. But Bird with Clock have shown fight back now with mid boss being forced. Potentially a bait in Saya Perry. That'll be great for Bird with Clock to be able to disengage from this initial trade. But I mean, you just feel the aggression from melee groups. They're oozing confidence in these fights.
I think whatever melee creeps can do to get the drop on this mid walker, I think they're going to be happy enough to take here. Billy chain gang does yank Saya forward, but there it is, the killing blow. Big connection there for Do, who hasn't exactly been waiting in the shadows for his chance to pounce. He's been highly relevant in every single fight. The lasso eventually connects onto Floss, and as good as Geist is at turning the fight. Not so great in the 1v3. Floss doesn't even bother with a soul exchange, and now you best believe mid boss is on.
Also, we had a message from Chuck Pelvis saying, quote, the patron of Deadlock for that $1,000.
That is crazy. You are the patron of Deadlock. Are you Archmother, though? That's my question. Which patron are we talking? Is it Return of Shadows?
1v3ing them to keep them out of the mid pit, and he's unkillable, by the way. He still has, I think they're going to be able to help him if they get him this region. I don't think they can stick around.
He's peeling. His health bar is going up.
He's gaining it. I need that E shift really takes things to the next level on Shiv. Now, Ido hunting, chasing for kills. Maybe he's done a little too much, but as long as he keeps his life, keeps his head on straight, this is going to be a comfortable one. And melee creeps with triple rejuve with the soul advantage for the whole map to clear here. It's be a momentary back off to clear some farm and reset, but I expect a base siege to be coming sooner rather than later with these rejuves.
Yeah. Not a massive soul lead, but the way the melee creeps are fighting, Bird with Clock have never had a chance to really get to fight 6-on-6, to make use of their, just inherent resilience, and obviously like their sort of mastery when it comes to like sustained damage output. Speaking of which, Spirit Resilience in the inventory for Floss alongside a counter spell there. Bird with Clock are certainly feeling the pinch. They're losing their side Sinners. They're losing their side Camps. This is melee creeps denying any chance at an easy comeback into this game.
Yeah, and getting this opportunity now with that team fight win with the Souls to be able to go grab the map, clear out a lot of these Sinners that just came back up. Some big buys. This upgraded AoE is massive for Doorman. I mean, the call bells become almost a zoning tool in the team fight. Also, escalating picked up for Do. I mean, this is one of the lowest green investment shivs I've seen, and you see why. He recognizes, I think, with this E shift that they almost can't deal with him, and his damage is going to be ridiculous.
The other side here is like actually confidently harassing the Billy. Should tell you everything you need to know about this state of the game. Cursed Relic also picked up here, which is obviously going to be pretty important component of the stuff him into the body bag strategy. And yes, we get this left side pressure really starting to mount. Checking in with John up to 37k. Certainly, looking pretty imperious. And Floss, like as fed as they are, like Lady Geist is just not getting these ideal conditions. She's not getting a fight where she's not the object of scrutiny. She doesn't get to sit in the back line, plug away with this kind of damage. It has been the fight constantly taken to Bird with Clock, which, hey, I said at the start of the game, that's kind of what they would want in theory, but around objectives, when they can deathball, when they can actually make use of, some of the inherent synergies and, like I said, their resilience to this disruption. We've just seen none of it.
and just taxing away these base Guardians one by one, starting to edge things forward on the push. Barbaric are trying to run down the clock in this rejuve, but there's still a little bit more than a minute, and Melee Creeps look to be forcing the issue here. Nice little high ground take from John. Gonna present some problems. The first shrine looks to be going down very quickly into this one. Matt really has one powerful go in this fight. Is he gonna deploy it now? Maybe a little bit of a deep dive from Silver, but hold on. Do is here to assist, and you have shift problems in this game.
It's. I don't think you're getting out of this one, even with each shift. Remember, you pop out of each shift with that extra spirit resist and spirit power if you even sort of need that. So it goes from bad to worse, basically, when you fail to blow that shiv up quickly, which is fundamentally hard to do because of his kit anyway. Oh my goodness, the chase is on. His slices and dices is dirty. Killing blow there does connect, and there's certainly more where that came from. We are knocking on the doors of the spawn. 29-minute game. Felt quicker to me, frankly, because of how quickly we got out of the laning phase and into just straight up brawl. But there go more shrines. Both of them are down, and Burbaclock are bleeding out.
Yeah, Melee Creeps are low across the board. They are still going to get this nice little late kill on Arctic. 5-man Billy Chain, though. Only one rejuve still remains. Tanner gets one and may actually be able to escape with his life, but the first patron won't be so lucky, and wants to just end the game here. If he can find a couple stagger kills here, it could be enough. By the same token, going down would be costly, so they're just going to make a quick retreat to this doorman door and head all the way out. Nice, comfortable finish here for Melee Creeps. And honestly, with this back out in the reset, I think this game may just be done. Burbaclock are going to have to go for full desperation, recontest on this urn with no wave pressure and no advantages at all, really, to speak of.
I'm going to be honest with you, the win condition feels narrow. It's get Melee Creeps all together, which is impossible considering Lash's mobility and the fact that they've got a doorman, and then just try and stun lock them, find a way to get a big chain gang, get in there with the Dust Devils, and just try and make use of like some of this wombo capacity they've got, especially with nap time in there. But Melee Creeps just not giving that the kind of fight. We've got Scourge that we've seen on the Silver. Obviously, the Alk Fire here from Sae, just tossing them in as he likes, and is very, very slippery as Holiday to catch in general. 2 buffs and a pretty elementary urn turn in means that Melee Creeps basically get their lead to an unassailable point.
Melee Creeps going to wait on the urn here, considering whether they want to do it, but the comeback urn is one of the only ways that there could still be a fight here. You see this, the urn take damage hurts here. Even Sae can't quite hold it. They're just going to go for the fight instead. Moving all the way past the urn. Sae's a little bit outside of this, but it looks like Ultimate's already being pumped here by Burbaclock.
And pretty early too.
Now.
Yeah, they're kind of getting forced out. Okay.
Oh, but he's put in the hotel and now can't really have any influence on the outcome of this fight. John has already found a kill into this one.
Yeah, okay, here the Dust Devil. So the other component of this wombo is in play, but here's John. Iradomini is taking some serious names here. Matt's going to melt here, even under Shadow Transformation conditions. It's going to be tough, but he barely hits that in time. It is absolutely deterministically over, folks. Sae and Vinyl happy to sacrifice themselves to their respective patrons as the real heavy hitters are still standing for Melee Creeps, and then we'll end this game just north of 30 minutes. GG, Melee Creeps back in the money match.
What a match from Do. I mean, to come into a brutal lane for the first few minutes and just hold the line no matter what, not giving up kills, just staying alive, doing what he can really, which isn't much, to then come back with the double kill. And I feel like he never let go of the game from that moment on, right? Do just continued to snowball, continue to force those kind of fights and stay on. I think he was still on a kill streak from that initial double kill at the start of the game. So Shiv is back like he never left.
Brutal. Dan, I don't know what to tell you, man. These Melee Creeps are looking great. And Vinyl seems like a great plug and play so far. The Doorman tends to kind of throw the game upside down. It just has this outsized impact over the result and can really do some disgusting stuff, but he looks switched on. I'm kind of excited to see more of his hero pool, but for now, Melee Creeps have decidedly earned their chance to retake their throne.
Yes, another Melee Creeps final. Who would have thought? As we see the highlights here, it seemed like it was never in doubt, and that quick double kill from Du there, that really felt like the moments where you start as you mean to go on, and that really was true for Du. It seemed like he was a massive problem in this game on the Shiv, which is refreshing because in EU they didn't really treat us to any Shiv.
This kill too really hurt. I mean, that was a moment where Burbaclock are trying to, force the map advantage, really leverage this Mirage for some serious value, and then they just turn around and it's John, of course, who gets the kill, which really is the worst case scenario.
And I didn't hate the way the Burbaclock traded for that mid boss, right? They got an urn turn in, and they'd already been sort of sculpting a push on the left-hand side that allowed Bloss, I think, to push that Walker down. So that was all very reasonable. They're staying within like a relatively respectful like soul distance, but like that's like, you know, as a team. But when you see like Dew is just that far ahead, then like Jake pointed out, like he's unkillable. Ethereal Shift as well, just giving that extra time, that also that extra time to sort of heal and, you know, like have that deferred damage cleared, and, you know, the extra resistances that you get with that. He had escalating, he had superior cooldown as well. So the guy is basically just darting around the battlefield constantly. That double that he got fed in lane really started a chain of events that couldn't be dealt with, and this was nice for Venile. Obviously shuts down a chain gang that wasn't great, and that was the problem. Clock could never get melee creeps grouped up. That would have been a chain gang for a doorman. So even though, you know, it was interrupted ultimately, it's unlikely Tanner's going to be able to generate a lot of momentum in the fight off that. Everything is just happening disparately, and guys, melee creeps are so good at this. They keep you guessing. They keep you chasing your own tail, chasing after them in terms of like how they get value out of these soul exchanges, objective exchanges. And yeah, you don't get that idealized 6v6 fight around an urn, for example. They'll always make you hurt somewhere else on the map, spread you out.
Yeah, Jake, it really seemed like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some tempo problems. You know, that's something that we do think about when we're seeing like a Geist, you know, versus a Venator, for example. Like Venator can kind of get into the action a lot quicker and just be very active. And Geist really does need a lot of farm to get going. But I feel like, you know, melee creeps are a team. If you give them space to work with, because you're playing a bit more passively, they're going to take that extra space and really generate that advantage. That's kind of like from a macro level, that's kind of how it seemed to play out. Do you feel like the draft hurt Bird with Clock here?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, you know, I maybe would have loved to see Bird with Clock grab something that lets you be a little bit more punishing on some of those goes where Sai is getting in, forcing something, getting out. It's like those are the moments you have to be able to find a kill. So some initiator could have felt, you know, useful in that spot. Bird with Clock, they go for the kind of all in, like we will deathball, we will be the best brawling team ever. And you're right, they get picked to pieces. The mobility game is just a little bit too clean from melee creeps. They don't give those, you know, cut and dried team fights that you want when you build this draft. So it's just the nature of playing a team as good as melee creeps, right? A lot of other teams would have slipped up and allowed just that like one moment where, okay, the ultimates start to line up. We can go for the mid boss. We can go for the urn. It just felt like we never saw that from Bird with Clock. After the first couple minutes of the game, this was just a map completely in control of the melee creeps.
There you go. The stats do 15-1. Do we need to even talk about anything else? Like, is there anything else that's cool in the stats page, or is that really it?
I mean, no, that to me is certainly what stands out, right? Outside that, not that surprising. We saw like how nasty John was looking towards the end of the game with that Iradomini. You know, I am kind of blown away. And again, like he's able to pick up that silencer and have like great impact against this Archmother team comp, right? They don't really have not in the way that we recognize it, like a, you know, like a standard M1 carry. And Arctic obviously is building like that Echo Shard escalating style and not the sort of Ricochet inhibitor style. So, you know, I think that you definitely have to give up some equity in order to sort of build that way, even though we recognize it's super disruptive and very powerful and it plays into this death ball strat. But, you know, and then maybe another initiator, like Jake said, instead of like someone with that, you know, inherent CC and global presence might have been the way to go. Because there were picks. There were times that we saw John and Sire die together while they were looking aggressively trying to find these opportunities. But those punishes from, you know, the Sapphire side are so few and far between. And it's only when they've just happened to have really good positioning fortuitously. They don't have a way to like, you know, routinely punish, I think, those kind of overextensions. And I mean, melee creeps recognize that off the rip. They played into it.
Yeah, one thing I'll say that does strike me is that obviously Tanner got off to a horrible start, and Billy is really, really strong. I think Billy, it's not unusual to see Billy get top damage on his team. And but Tanner got so far behind, I can't help but feel like, you know, whatever went wrong for Tanner there was a big part of the story as to what really set back the ability for Bird with Clock to have maybe more stopping power to slow that some momentum down that melee creeps had.
I think, you know, for both Billy and Yamato, they both honestly suffer from the same ailment, which isn't always a weakness, but it's that when they find themselves behind, then they really can't throw their weight around. They're heroes that rely on you try to run away from them and you fail because they have these amazing tools to chase you down. But when you're the team trying to run away on Billy and Yam, you really regret being on those heroes because they really just aren't going to contribute as much. Vice versa for Dew. I think if we don't see that double kill happen, if we see Billy come off of the early game start a little bit stronger and Shiv maybe being beaten down from a tough laning phase, I think we could have seen a very different game. So a lot of props to the melee creeps for the recovery in the laning phase, and then being able to ensure that Tanner and Matt never really found that decisive comeback.
Well, we're going to reveal our MVP now, and it's probably no surprise who the MVP is. And to be honest, when we were looking at the highlights package, I thought we were already in the MVP segment because it was just this guy like back-to-back killing blows that we got to see from Do as he was, showing the masterful shotgun movements with Shiv across the map. And I mean, I will probably see it here as well, like that double kill. I think again that was it was a pretty sexy way to start the game.
I mean, bro, how early was his torment pulse? He also picks up like a mystic reef at the end of the game. So, just obviously just abuse the slice of dice to be even more punishing. So he kind of much like Arctic wants to like dash back and forth in these fights, right? But he just got so far ahead, and we're just reminded of how really deadly Shiv is. We talked about like there not being like a premium tank in the draft for melee creeps until they took the Shiv here, and dude wasn't just soaking damage, bro. He was dishing it.
Love the like fake majestic leap with the jump pad and killing blow.
Yeah, right. With the holiday pads, it really takes Shiv to the next level where he's able to, all he needs is that like something to start the movement chain, and then he's on and onward and upward out of any kind of danger. And I mean, Shiv's just one of these characters. I think it's one of the scariest heroes in the game when you're far ahead with the farm, because it's the mobility, it's the damage. You don't lack anything as a hero when you hit that kind of a farm potential. In theory, the weakness is that you aren't a fast farmer, so you should sort of have a hard time getting to that level of explosiveness. But you give a player like Do just enough of a head start, just a couple of those kills in the lane, and it just changes everything.
Well, we're going to take a look at the bracket now because that was our tasty appetizer. It was a lovely morsel there that we got treated to by Do, and perhaps we'll get a lot more of it. It's going to be FPS Lounge coming up against Melee Creeps here after the break for our money match here for North America. This is the Shift 44. We'll see you very shortly.